Hello, Blenders, and welcome to episode number 127 of ReelBlend, the podcast that can't believe it's going to see New Mutants before Tenet. My name is Sean O'Connell, the managing director here at CinemaBlend and a co-host of the ReelBlend podcast. This week's episode, we are going to preview Comic-Con at Home. We have a review of a film called The Rental. And speaking of The Rental, we have Dave Franco, the director of that film, as a guest on the show that is co-hosted each and every week by Kevin McCarthy of Fox 5 in Washington, D.C. Hi, Kev.
Sean, good to talk to you. Jake, Gabe, good afternoon.
Good to be with you, as always. That other man in the third chair, Jake Hamilton, Fox 32 in Chicago. Hi, Jakey.
Doing well, dude. Yeah, it's a little... I was telling you guys before we started recording, and this is not meant to be, dismissive or negative, but just, I'm tired of talking about Tenet being delayed.
Yes.
I'm legit just over it. Just tell me when it's coming out, and then we'll cross that bridge when we get there.
Yeah, I know. Well, we'll mention briefly what the status of Christopher Nolan's latest film is later on in the show, but let's get to some plugs. A reminder that over on Facebook, we have a community page that everybody can join into. We have all of these episodes going on to CinemaBlend's YouTube page at the moment, and there's people who are really understanding that it can be more fun to watch us visually, to see some of our reactions, our facial reactions, to see... Jake physically groan at an awful pun, or just to see how sharp Kevin looks today. I mean, gosh, he's bringing his A. Yeah, he really does. He's the
crazy thing, though, is that below the waist, totally nude.
This is true. Or I'm wearing jogger pants, which don't match my outfit at all. To be honest, it looks really weird.
And I will warn everybody, too, that Gabe and I are both in the middle of major storms. And so if we cut out, that's the reason. And Jake and Kevin will finish the show strong. So get your puns ready for the back half of the show. And, of course, we have a shop. Oh, so everyone's who has been purchasing shirts and mugs and sharing all the ReelBlend merchandise that you guys are picking up. Those photographs are outstanding. We cannot thank you guys enough for supporting the show, for marketing the show, for just being as supportive as the community is. You guys are absolutely amazing. So thank you very much. If you guys also want to pick up merchandise you haven't yet grabbed it, we are at cinemablend.com/shop. It makes me happy when Kevin sends us at the end of the evening his ReelBlend coffee mug set up by his coffee machine, ready to go for the next morning. It gives me a sense of peace, like closure for the day. I like it. Thanks,
there's also a mental element to that when I go to bed at night. I like setting it up and having the ReelBlend logo pop up. So the first thing I see at 5:15 in the morning is our logo, which is awesome.
Yay. Yeah. I love it.
Well, joke's on you because I have cardboard cutouts of all four of us, and I just leave them at the end of my bed. So that's how I wake up in the morning.
Jake, can you move mine to the couch and don't put any blankets on it?
Yeah.
No sheets, no pillow. And this check on me periodically and see if I'm freezing.
You have to explain that joke for people that are...
All right, really briefly, I got to stay at Jake's abode, the beautiful penthouse condominium that he's got on Chicago's waterfront. And we went out for, so this was actually, I'm going to embellish this. This was an evening. We went on a helicopter ride. Jake pulled some strings because he's an important man in the Chicago community and got us a helicopter ride, which was outstanding. If to quote Ferris Bueller, if you ever have the means, I highly recommend it. And then we came back, but no, when did we eat? We ate afterwards, didn't we? We passed this famous steak shop or sandwich shop. And then we ate. And so poor Jake, had been up since 4 something. And we spent the entire day interviewing Sam Mendes. And then we had a huge meal and we went on a helicopter ride. So when we came back, we were going to watch Watchmen, an episode that he had seen already that I hadn't seen yet. And I was going to catch up on. And Jake fell asleep while we were watching it, which is fine. It's adorable. Like he, curled up in a little ball and I finished the episode. And then, I said, Jake, I'm gonna crash because I was gonna fly back to St. Louis the next day. And Jake hopped up and he said, "Cool, man," and went into his room and went to sleep with Daenerys. And I had to find my own way on his couch, and with no sheets or blankets or anything. Now it's a very comfortable, and you've heard he has a very comfortable fold-out couch. It is very comfortable, and I never
said I have comfortable blankets and pillows.
It's true, and I will say you keep the temperature in your condo at about 95 degrees. So it was very pleasant, very warm and toasty, but
I miss the South.
I like to give him a hard time for that. We obviously here at ReelBlend are a theater-going podcast. We support going to the theaters. We support cinema and seeing things on the biggest screen possible. So this has been rough. And it's funny to think about, not funny per se, but like weeks ago, months ago, when all of this started happening, when theaters started shutting down, we were really concerned at the show of like, how often can we have these conversations if there's nothing to go see? And we're still sort of struggling through like, when are we going to get to see these movies that we're really looking forward to? But we're not struggling nearly as much as the theater owners, the theater chains, but the smaller, the independent cinemas. I know we lost our art house theater here in Charlotte, a 2-screen Manor Theater, because of everything going on. And so we want to bring your attention to something that actually launched just today, the day that we're recording. It's called SaveYourCinema.com. And this is mainly aimed at our U.S. listeners because it's by the National Association of Theater Owners, which is an association that backs U.S. theater chains and independent theater owners. And it's a form, it's an online form that you go to, you fill out, and they have the text of an email that goes to your congressman, senator, U.S. representative, and basically asks them to support an act, the Reform Act, that would allow a financial lifeline essentially for theater chains. And because the concern is right now that if they have to stay closed longer, they're going to have a really hard time bouncing back once we're able to open safely. And so you can go there, you can fill out that form, you can send the message automatically. I think you can rework the text of it too to make it a little bit more personal. Restart Act, I'm sorry, is not a Reform Act. Thank you very much, Gabe. So the website's called SaveYourCinema.com. If anybody wants to, here in the U.S., go and send a message to your local politician to encourage them to support this Restart Act. It's a financial lifeline, again, for the theaters and for our international listeners, because we have a lot of people who are listening to us in markets around the world, and that's outstanding to us too. You know, do what you can to go out and back your local cinema, whether it's just attending it when it's safe, donating anything in terms of monetary or time even. Theaters are struggling right now. We're not 100% sure when everything's going to be able to open back up again. So swing by SaveYourCinema.com and see what you guys can do about that. Boys, anything to add to that, or did I cover all the bases?
I'm in.
Pretty good?
I like
Pretty
it.
good?
I just wrote down the information.
Amen. Good. Save your cinema. And also, thank you to everybody who purchased that special ReelBlend shirt that we did in order to help the Will Rogers Foundation and throw some money towards people who are working for the theater chains. Okay. Kevin had a great idea for the weekly poll on Friday, and I ran with it. Kev, it was a landslide. You asked us, what is Chris Evans' best movie? And I'm going to give you a little bit of a hard time because of one movie that we left out. But I'm going to give you the 4 choices.
I know which movie we left out that I kicked myself after I sent it to you. And then the movie is Snowpiercer, which is...
that's not my choice. I thought we left out Knives Out. And I think we should have maybe included Knives Out.
I was a little surprised we included Scott Pilgrim, because like I don't think of Scott Pilgrim as a Chris Evans movie.
I just
like he's in it,
by the way,
but like he's in it and then he's out.
I just sent you that text with the 4 first films that popped into my head. I mean, I didn't think about it too much.
Yeah, nope, that's what I went with. I just copied and pasted right into that. All right, so the landslide winner was
you can really
Captain
tell how much
America.
care we put into this show.
Captain America: The Winter Soldier. But I'll give you the other 3, and then you guys can. And then Kevin, I'm going to make you pick of the other 3 which one you think won. Scott Pilgrim, Sunshine, or Not Another Teen Movie?
Scott Pilgrim.
Scott Pilgrim did win, yes, with 11%
and by the way,
of the vote. See, Jake?
Scott Pilgrim is actually one of his best performances. Scott Pilgrim is just as much of a Chris Evans movie as Knives Out is. I'd argue.
I think that's fair. Yeah, I think that's fair, because Knives Out to me, all right, so if I were going to define whose movie is Knives Out, it's Daniel Craig's. Is that fair?
Or Ana de Armas. Yeah, I mean, one of those two, yeah.
Interesting. And Scott Pilgrim would be a Michael Cera film, but it has a lot of other really strong performances to it. So Not Another Teen Movie is not really well, I guess that is a Chris Evans.
No, that's a Chris Evans movie.
That's a Chris Evans movie?
And I know this because I've been haunted by that damn Jakey line as long as I have known Kevin McCarthy.
That's Jake's name in my phone. Every time he texts me, I have a beautiful reminder of Not Another Teen Movie, one of the greatest. In the grand
scheme of things, and I will not go into any more detail, it's not the worst nickname that Kevin has for someone in his phone.
Oh, I know which one you're referring to.
You know which one I'm talking
about. God's sakes, if it's me, I'm going to be really upset.
Oh,
It's
he
not
doesn't even
even
have you saved in his phone.
Yeah, it's David Fincher. I have him in there as something funny. We text all the time.
Considering that you did meet David Fincher and talk to him in a hotel hallway.
I know we can't tell that story on the show, so there's really no point in bringing it up. But and I tell that story at dinner parties so often, you have no idea.
I want to just mention, too, that underneath the poll, once we posted it, somebody said, oh, what a skewered poll, like, to lean towards, like, of course you put a Marvel movie in there, everyone's going to vote Marvel. And I wrote underneath it from the ReelBlend page, like, clearly you haven't listened to our earlier episodes where we were hard on Not Another Teen Movie, like telling people how great it was. I still think that's one of the commentary tracks that we should do eventually, because that movie is hysterical.
There is
I'd be very happy to revisit it.
There's a line of dialogue in Another Teen Movie, and then we'll move on, that I think is truly one of the best lines that I've seen in a movie in forever. And it's Chris Evans. I've told this, I think, before. He walks up to the leading character on the show, this girl who's absolutely obsessed with him, the leading character of the show. I can't remember her name off the top of my head. And he's standing in line with her at the lunch in school. And he starts talking to her about something, because the bit is it's the, she's all that bit, right? He has to make her the character over and make her prom queen. So he goes up to her and he's like, starts talking to her, and she's like, wait, you haven't talked to me in 5 years. And he goes, actually, it's been more like 6, because the time you're referring to, I was saying hi to the person directly behind you. It was just such a specific line, and it's so mean that he actually, I just thought that line was brilliant. So
I love the first time that they see her, when they pick that she's the one that has to go, that they have to do over for the prom queen, and they go, but she has paint on her overalls. But she has glasses on.
Absolutely gorgeous. And she's walking up the steps, and oh my God. Randy Quaid is so funny in that movie. All right. Anyways, sorry.
I hope Evans does more comedies, honestly, because he's really, really great in them. And so one day we'll do a commentary track for that. I want to throw the show to our interview of the week, which is Dave Franco. Dave Franco is taking on his feature film directorial debut in The Rental, and it's pretty solid. We're going to review it at the end of this episode, but he also was just a really great interview. I mean, I know we say this with our guests, but it just so happens that when people come on the show, they get comfortable, they settle into a groove, they open up and talk about filmmaking. And I think we had a really great conversation with Dave Franco. And so without further ado, I'm going to let you guys hear it. This is Dave Franco on behalf of his directorial debut, The Rental.
First of all, Dave, it's so good to see you again, man. I hope you and your family are doing well. We were all sort of saying how excited we were to interview you. Like you said, we've all spoken before, and you're seriously like one of the genuinely the nicest guys to talk to. So seriously, thank you so much for coming on ReelBlend. We appreciate it.
Thank you guys for having me.
I want to talk about actors whenever they're writing and directing a film. That decision they have to make whether or not to cast themselves in a movie. Obviously, Clint Eastwood's gone both ways. Ben Affleck's gone both ways. I'm curious, at what point in the process did you have to make that decision? And was there ever a moment where you were going to play one of the brothers?
Yeah, so the truth is, I wasn't originally intending on directing the movie. And at that point, I was going to play the character of Josh that ultimately went to Jeremy Allen White. But when I decided to direct, I just wanted to be able to focus on my responsibilities behind the camera. And I'm glad that I didn't act in it too, because there was plenty on my plate. And in addition to that, Jeremy is so good. And I think people mainly know him from Shameless, and he's been in some smaller movies too, but like, I feel like he hasn't had an opportunity to really kind of show what he can do. And I swear to God, every day he was on set, all of us behind the camera would look at each other and be like, why is this guy not the biggest star in the world? He's just got this really raw, grounded, unpredictable energy.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. When I was watching his performance, like, this guy feels like someone I would just know. Like, it's very, very grounded and very real. So one of the things I found that interesting that you did was perspective, manipulating perspective with the audience. As the movie opens, we immediately think the two people we're looking at are a couple based on what's going on in the scene. And then as the film goes along, you continue to manipulate things. There's reveals that are manipulated later on as well. I wanted to ask you, as a storyteller, the power of perspective manipulation with an audience and that push-pull and kind of figuring that out and playing with us and knowing that we're going to think one way and then flip the next way. I found that to be such an interesting theme throughout your film.
Yeah, I wish I had a more intelligent answer for you, but the truth is, it was more intuitive on like whose perspective we wanted to be in at any given moment. And I think what it ultimately did is, when I talk to people who have seen the film, it's really interesting to hear who they latched onto and who they related to. I think it says something about that viewer themselves and their history. Where, for example, I was lucky enough to do an interview with Barry Jenkins about this, and he just kept going on and on about Sheila Van's character because he's experienced, levels of racial profiling, and so that's who he latched onto. And then I talked to a lot of other people who latch onto Alison's character because, for the most part, she is the audience. She is the eyes and ears of the audience, and she's thinking a little more rationally than everyone else. But I hope that answers the question.
Well, like basically, no, it does. But the idea that in the beginning you want us to think a certain way when we see those two characters, and then you reveal that, and that happens throughout the film. And I think that's an amazing tool as a director to lead us down the path. Is there a push-pull of how long to lead us down a certain path before you flip it?
Well, I think the intention there is to just continually try to keep the viewers on on the edge of their seat and not know what's going to happen. Where, when you take a step back and look at the overall premise, it sounds like something you've heard before. Two couples go to a vacation home and then things go wrong. But within that premise, we were like, all right, how can we subvert the genre wherever possible and make things unexpected, whether it be, unexpected scares or unexpected relationships where, like you say, in this opening scene, you think that two of the characters are together and ultimately you realize, oh, no, that's not the case. But what it does is it plants this thing in your head where it's like, oh, but what is the relationship between those two characters?
See,
which pays off really well later.
Love that. Yeah. All right, cool.
I mean this as a compliment in 100% fashion, but all three of us were so blown away by how confident this was, as your feature film directorial debut. We have a little text chain going. We were texting each other during our screenings of just like, this is really fucking great. And listen, I saw your Comedy or Die sketch about, getting a Blumpkin from Olivia Munn. So I expected really huge things from you, but this was a huge step. But I want to ask specifically from visually shooting, you use a lot of natural light, a lot of scenes in the darkness. You rely on things like fog to set mood and tension. Things that I would assume a director on a set might want to talk themselves out of because it doesn't have a controlled environment. So can you talk about some of the obstacles that come with doing that and how you overcame them?
Yeah, I mean, part of that was because of necessity, because we were a small crew and we couldn't bring giant lights out into the woods. But knowing that we had those limitations, we were like, okay, let's not force something. Let's use what we're working with and try to find the best way forward. And so I was lucky enough to work with this young DP named Christian Spranger, who is going to be the biggest DP in the world. And I'm going to look back one day and be like, I can't believe I got that guy to shoot my first film. Yeah. But he's mainly known for his work on the TV show Atlanta. And if you look at that show, it tells you everything you need to know about him, where if you think about how many productions have filmed in Atlanta over the past decade, and then you look at that show and you're like, oh my God, he found a way to make it look different than anyone else. And it just speaks to his unique eye. And so I really leaned on him a lot throughout this whole process. And he just really gave me the confidence to make bold choices and to we created these longer shots where everyone's in the frame at the same time and it almost feels like a play and the camera's moving in and out. And there are these shots that ultimately are a little scary because we're like, you know what, we probably should go in for coverage, but I think there's something really bold and exciting about just letting this play out and really feeling the tension in the space between all the characters. And so I give the DP a lot of credit.
Weirdly enough, one of my favorite shots in the film is the actual drive to the house, and the way you kept two images on the screen at the same time with the car still going and then the motion of the drive. And I was like, I just thought that was such a brilliant thing because it wasn't necessarily a slow dissolve. You just kept two images on the screen at the same time. I was like, that's a really interesting choice. I've seen it before in old school filmmaking, but man, that was freaking awesome, man.
Thanks, man. Yeah, it's an early moment in the film, and it's essentially the drive that takes us from their normal life to this rental home. And so we were like, let's get a little weird with this. Let's set the tone early on so people know this isn't a straightforward thriller. Like, you're going to get some things that are a little outside the box and unexpected.
Dave, I'm going to ask you a question that I actually asked the guys earlier today. Like, is this weird? Is this a weird question? But about 30 minutes into the movie, I legit had to pause it and text the guys because they'd already seen the film. And I said, guys, I need to ask you a question. Is the dog going to be okay? Because I'm such a mass. I don't know if you heard, I had to mute my mic. I don't know if you heard my dog. I'm such a massive dog guy. And whenever I watch like a thriller or a horror film and there are shots of the dog, my first thought is like, something's going to fucking happen to this dog. Like something's going to happen. You got Taylor kind of sneaking around. I don't really know what's going on. And so I kind of just, and so the whole movie, I'm just on tension, yes, I'm 100% captivated, invested in what's happening with the humans. But there's a part of me that's going like, what the fuck is going on with this dog? And I'm curious if is that a conscious choice?
Definitely. So
yes, okay.
What's interesting is, and without giving too much away, as a viewer, we, for whatever reason, we're way more invested in the safety of animals than even the humans on screen. Yep. And it's I'm sure it's because it's like, these are helpless, innocent creatures and like nothing, like you can't do anything bad to them. And so the truth is, there were iterations of the script where there was no dog, and it really was a last second decision to put a dog in there.
Really?
And what it does is exactly what you're saying, where it adds this immediate tension, and ultimately it weaves its way into the actual plot too, but where for the most part it's just like what you're saying is like, don't do anything to this dog.
I learned that one of the funniest line readings in the movie is Alison when she's now on Molly and she's messing with the hot tub, and she just sort of laughs to herself like, I lost the dog. Oh yeah. It's so good at that moment.
That has been the universal biggest laugh.
Oh, no kidding. Really? That's funny.
Dave, I'm a pun fan, so the bro puns was something I just really found to be very delightful. And I was just interested to know how many others there were that didn't make it in. And the idea that you gave Alison the best one, which is absolutely, whatever the word, I can't even say it. But was it designed to give her that final one? And also just were there other bro puns that you guys just kind of kept going with?
Well, those were all the ones that we had written out. I let the actors kind of improvise and see what came to mind. I remember Dan throwing out Scarlett Johansson at one point. But yeah, it was always designed for Alison to have that final one, because like it's the brothers kind of doing it together, and then it's like Alison from a distance being like, wait, I can play too. And so it just gives her just this little moment of sweetness.
At the end of the film, it should have said directed by Dave Franco. I don't know why that didn't happen, Dave. Come on, man.
It's a missed opportunity.
Dave Franco joint.
Yes.
That's great.
So Spike Lee's gonna sue somebody.
There is a theory in the horror genre about morality and morally guilty characters, how they can be fodder for slashers. And the innocent or the guilt-free tend to go last longer. And I'm just curious if you bought into that at all when you were putting the story together.
Definitely. And I want to be delicate about how I talk about this, because, again, I don't want to give anything away.
Sure.
But if you take a step back, there, these characters, no one's inherently good. No one's inherently bad. They're very real. They're all flawed in their own ways. And so throughout the film, some of them are making more unethical choices than others, but everyone has their moments of like, hey, you made the wrong decision there, and now you're vulnerable. So I guess let's just leave it at that. Yeah.
Okay.
But it was a conscious choice. Yeah.
So you've actually worked with some of the greatest filmmakers of all time. And my wife and I were actually just rewatching The Disaster Artist the other day because I freaking love that movie. And I was interested to know like what you pull from filmmakers that you've worked with. I mean, specifically you work with your brother on that film. Were you watching him as a director and like pulling, and like, were there things that you pulled from his direction from that film that you utilize here?
Definitely. Yeah. I mean, I've always been the type of actor who has been curious about every step of the process, and I can't help myself. I want to talk to the DP and the writer and the production designer and just like hear about their process and why they're making certain decisions. And I try not to be annoying about it. I try not to overstep my bounds, but I have been like, cherry picking from all these people that I've worked with, knowing that I wanted to do this one day. And so thinking about like the Disaster Artist specifically, I mean, with my brother and Seth Rogen and his crew, like what I took from that film and what I'll do forever is they really set a comfortable environment on set where they encourage every single person to voice their opinion if they think it'll help the film in any way. Mm-hmm. And so essentially there's no egos, and the rule is best idea wins no matter who it's coming from. And so I definitely brought that over to the rental. And in addition to that, I think the smartest thing I did was I really vetted the crew in an extensive way where obviously I wanted people who were really talented, but on top of that, I needed people who were going to be very friendly, nice people who were going to work their asses off. Because as a first-time director, I needed people whose number one priority was the quality of the film, as opposed to some people who have maybe been around a long time and they just want to get home so they can watch the basketball game. And so it was a very long process putting the crew together. But in the end, I was surrounded by all these really nice, talented people who made my job much easier than it could have been.
I thought you were going to say that you shot rental on 35 and digital room style. Go ahead, Sean.
They were real quick. You know what we realized about that? So Tommy Wiseau, he did that on the
best
room.
thing ever.
And we realized since he did that, he could actually do a 3D version of the room if he wanted. And I think he was thinking about that. I want to give him the benefit of the doubt. I think that he was way ahead of all of us.
Tell him to do it. Someone needs to tell him to actually release the 3D version. If he has a 35 and a digital camera shot of each one, you're totally right. Oh my God.
Wait, my computer messes up and I come back in the conversation, all I hear is a 3D version of the room.
Yeah.
What the shit did I miss?
Dave's inviting us over to watch it.
Yeah.
Damn.
Ahead, we had a conversation on the show recently about directors and how when they deliver a movie right off the bat, it might be their passion project. They pour their heart and soul into it. And one of the next things that we say to them after is, great, what are you going to do next? Like, what are you directing next, kind of thing. And it's almost unfair to me to just assume that people who direct a film, have a million of them in them. And in fact, you do see some directors who have one or two that are really passionate about, and then they just stay in the machine. And so I'm curious, coming off of your first one, where do you fall with this? Was it something you just wanted to scratch and now you're content to go back to acting? Or are you sort of looking at scripts and saying, I got to get back out there right away?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. You hear stories about Ari Aster, who has 13 scripts that he just has laying around his house. And so I don't have that many, but I would love to continue directing if I get the chance. And first off, I have a pretty strong idea for a sequel if I'm lucky enough to get the chance to continue this story. But in addition to that, my wife Alison and we have actually written a script during the quarantine for me to direct and for her to star in, and it's a romantic comedy. And the reason for that is we love the genre, but just looking at romantic comedies, especially over the last decade or so, I just feel like the bar has been set really low, where there's this tendency to make them or just give them this overly bright aesthetic, right? And also the characters and the storylines are very silly and nothing's grounded. And so we started looking at some of the classics like When Harry Met Sally, Sleepless in Seattle, Pretty Woman. And first off, they're very grounded. The acting is legitimately great. And they're all shot like dramas. Like they look good. And so we started thinking about like why no one approaches romantic comedies from this like more tasteful, smart perspective. And so that's what we're trying to do with this one. But yeah, we're basically just trying to find any excuse to collaborate again, just because we had such a great time together.
That's awesome.
Dave, I want to ask about the trailer to this movie, because whenever I found out that we were going to get to interview you, I wasn't super familiar with the film. So I was like, oh, before I watch the screener, I just want to kind of pop on and see what the movie's about. And I feel like the coolest compliment I can give the movie is that the trailer gives away nothing. In fact, I was bragging about your movie to a buddy of mine. He went and watched the trailer and he was like, oh, like that looks cool. I'm like, no, dude, like not screw the trailer, but I'm telling you, like the movie isn't, like the best parts aren't given away. I'm curious about that balance between like, obviously you want to draw people in and you want to sort of show them that this is something that they've never seen before, but you don't want to put the goods out there. You don't want to put everything out like, in 2.5 minutes.
So trailers are obviously very tricky where you're like, I need to make it intriguing enough to bring people in, but I don't want to give away too much. And especially with this film where there are turns that we want to hold on to. I was really proud of in regards to the trailer is that we don't give away anything in regards to the character dynamics and any of that. But I think what you're saying is accurate in that the trailer, it does kind of just look like, oh, okay, this is a story that feels somewhat familiar. But I think what makes it hopefully stand out is that you see the care that's being put into all of the details, where you see that it's beautifully shot by my DP. You see that there's real acting in it, as opposed to a lot of genre films that are a little over the top and the characters are like these two-dimensional stock characters. It's like you feel that there's a little more weight to it all, and hopefully intriguing enough for people to be like, oh, I'm curious to see. And then when they watch it, hopefully they'll be like, oh, there's way more layers than I even expected, and it'll be even more satisfying than they thought.
Dave, I'll end on this. One thing I really loved about the film was the score. It was almost like a heartbeat, like pumping as I was watching it. And I found myself almost in a rhythm watching your film, like in a very interesting way. And I think I say this sometimes when I talk to filmmakers, but I truly mean it. You utilize score as a leading character. It's part of the story. And I just wanted to talk to you about the idea of where to input those elements and kind of like as the tension builds and building up that heartbeat quality to it. 'Cause I think the score really does play such a pivotal role in the film. But also going back to the first question I asked you, you can mess with perception and manipulation with score as well. So can you talk about just like directing your score almost like a character?
Yeah, I'm so happy that you felt that way. The score is one of my favorite elements of the film. These guys, Danny Bensi and Sonder Jurians, who are geniuses, and they've worked in the genre space a few times before with Enemy, Martha Marcy May Marlene, Simon Killer, and most recently the HBO series The Outsider.
Enemy is a masterpiece, by the way.
Oh, The Outsider's fantastic,
I
too.
love Enemy, man. Oh, man.
Totally. Yeah. And like they're like their superpower is that they are able to create such tension with such simple sounds. And like you said, there's like a long stretch in the latter half of the film where there's this underlying rhythm that almost feels like a heartbeat, right? And what it does, like kind of psychologically, and not to get too heady about this, but it makes you kind of aware of your own heartbeat, which in turn makes your heartbeat kind of go a little quicker. And then before you know it, you're like feeling a little kind of short of breath. And they just know how to just manipulate the audience in that way. And also, I just feel like they approach the genre in a different way than most composers, where yes, they know where to lean into kind of the heavier kind of like sting moments, but they try to stay away from that wherever possible, where it feels all a little more elegant and just for lack of a better word, just a little strange. And it just makes you feel a little off kilter, and it just adds to the whole experience and just the tension that you're feeling.
Yeah, man, we appreciate that. I think our time is up, unfortunately, with you.
Our time is up. I want to, I want to plug the fact that the rental is going to be available on VOD on July 24th, but also something really cool that not a lot of people get to say: a select drive-ins. How cool is that?
That's awesome. This is a perfect drive-in movie.
It's a good one. It's a good one. We feel lucky that it actually lends itself well to that environment. And yeah, we're going to be, the weird thing about it is, like, as much as I want to be playing in more standard theaters throughout the country, we're going to ultimately probably play in more theaters than originally planned because of the driving component.
That's so cool, man. You're bringing them back.
Thank you.
I genuinely, I'm so happy that you guys loved it, and I appreciate all the thorough questions and smart questions, and it means a lot to me.
Yeah, Dave, I'll just say thank you so much for coming on the show, and how much we really appreciate having you, and tell everybody to check out the rental as soon as they can.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you so much to IFC Films for giving us time with Dave Franco. He was an excellent fit on the show. It was cool, too, after the fact, after we cut off the interview, we got to stay on and talk some spoilers with him and get into some nitty gritty about some of the details about the ending. And that's when I feel like the wall between him really came down, because he got to gush about some of his decisions in the back half of the movie. But obviously we don't want to run any of that and spoil it for you guys. So check out The Rental, and we'll have a full review later on in the show. So stick around. I want to get to talking points and the Comic-Con at home preview. Now, you boys don't generally go to Comic-Con. I'm curious, as people who avoid the melee of San Diego, do you have any interest in checking out these panels or presentations from the safety of your home Thursday through Sunday?
Yeah, absolutely. I, just if only because I don't have to deal with that. That's kind of what's most appealing to me. It's funny. I feel like I went to Comic-Con one time as a fan with one of my best friends, listener of the show, Chase, back in 2008. Which was the big movie that year was Watchmen. That's when we got to see the trailer for Watchmen, which was a huge deal. And I've heard a lot of people that go to Comic-Con on a regular basis say that around 2008 was the last time that it was like a fairly accessible event where, like, maybe you'd have to show up early if you wanted to go into Hall H, but like maybe like 90 minutes, 2 hours early. You didn't have to sleep overnight the night before. So, like, whenever I keep hearing about these panels, my knee-jerk reaction is like, oh, God, no, because I don't have to wait. And then I kind of have this feeling of, wait, like, I don't have to wait. I can just go in. So that's why I am kind of, like, excited about this, because I can just press a button and go straight in.
Yeah, I've never been to Comic-Con, but one of my favorite things about Comic-Con is, like, that it is such an amazing event that you do feel its presence even if you aren't there. I'll never forget when the Suicide Squad trailer premiered at Comic-Con. I will never forget. I remember where I was when that thing played and how many times I watched it in the car after it premiered. Like, there was just something so awesome about. I love that, first of all, as somebody who watches or reads Comic-Con from home, I do love that they give the audience the exclusive watch first, that the people in Hall H get to experience it individually without the internet. And I've always found that to be a really cool, special thing. I don't know what other cons do things like that, but I've always found the trailer releases to be amazing. Now, that being said, in the year that we're in, I don't know what we're going to be seeing. I don't think Marvel has anything crazy going on at Comic-Con, but Sean, you know a lot more about Comic-Con than I do, so you take it, my
so
friend.
the two biggest movie panels that are happening at Comic-Con this year are Bill and Ted Face the Music and The New Mutants. Both of those are hosting panels. Right now, both of those are down for August 28th openings. Now, the question becomes, will they hold on to those dates? And it just seems like they're the closest ones to have footage to show. The New Mutants, I guess, is going to show their opening sequence at their panel. They did some press beforehand, but it's a really weird situation because these movies are going to host their panels and they don't really know what to say. They're not 100% certain of when things are going to open. Even the TV side of it, Comic-Con over the years has become a very heavy TV presence. Has a very strong TV presence because
like Game of Thrones,
so much cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, Walking Dead. A lot of Netflix shows go there. Stranger Things will show up.
Lost
a lot
was
of the
big.
cool genre stuff is going to the cable services or the streaming services. So they've started to dominate. Star Trek always has a huge panel. And that's in terms of the shows, Picard and things that are going to that CBS All Access program. So there's even more television stuff going on this year. But I will be curious to see how the movie panels do it, because the one thing that they can't protect from that instance, and Kev, when you saw the Suicide Squad trailer, I think Warner Brothers was smart to put it out immediately after, but there's a lot of times when people are still figuring out ways to sort of bootleg, and with the panels now going online immediately, I know studios are concerned about piracy. You know, they're not going to show anything that they want to protect. It's stuff that they would want to get out as marketing anyway. So you might see another Bill and, like, we don't have a full Bill and Ted trailer, you know, like there was that sort of short tease. So I bet you a full trailer is part of that panel. And same thing with New Mutants. They just put out a tease right before this panel. They might have even more footage, but we'll see.
I have a question. Are they, in terms of logistically how it's going to work? Usually a big portion of the panels is people in the audience being able to have a Q&A and ask, are they allowing for that, or is that a logistical nightmare? Is it just one person is sort of hosting a virtual session with these actors and then we're all watching? Like, how does that work?
That's a great question, Jake, because I'm not sure. I'm not sure if they're even going to be pre-recorded panels that they just play at those designated times. They are maintaining a schedule. So like the Bill and Ted panel is at a certain time, and you could go and watch it on the Comic-Con website. I'm really worried about that site crashing. Like, I don't know how many people they're going to be able to maintain. And questions, I think this can be really difficult for them to pull off. It feels like it's going to be something that's just pre-recorded, and then they'll show whatever bit that they want to show, which does eliminate that really cool aspect of, like, the Q&A is what it's the worst and the best element of a Comic-Con panel, because you get people who come up and can waste time with a really awful question. And we've seen this in press conferences when we're at junkets. But sometimes you get those really magical moments when a fan gets to talk to somebody who they are not going to get a chance to interact with. And it's just the highlight of their day. And so I don't know if that's going to be able to be replicated this year. You're going to see, so on the TV side, His Dark Materials, that HBO show is one of the biggest things that's coming. And then Walking Dead is going to have a ton of stuff, and Fear the Walking Dead. So, yeah, I don't know. It's a thinner lineup. It feels like the studios want to do their own thing. DC and Warner Brothers have their big DC fandom in August, but Comic-Con, I give them credit for sort of blazing through and trying to figure out the solution to doing it at home. And it does mean that a lot of people who don't get to go to San Diego and might never get a chance to go to San Diego will get to participate in some of that. So if you're not 100% into Comic-Con, I want to turn everybody's attention to something that's going on Saturday and Sunday also, and this is selfishly in my wheelhouse. This is a fan-driven event called JusticeCon that is for Zack Snyder's Justice League, and most of the things that he is developing in terms of the DCEU. Now, this stemmed out of, and it's also going to be an online panel. It's going to be available to anybody. It's going to be free. You can just tune in, and they have a YouTube channel. They're going to have these panels going live. They have gotten, and it's just the Snyder Cut family wanted to have a big presence at San Diego Comic-Con this year. When everything sort of got flushed and nobody was going to be able to go to Comic-Con, they put together this online JusticeCon panel, and it's run by these two girls that go by the nickname the Nerd Queens online. It's Nana and Cole, and another girl named Meg, who the three women together who put this whole thing together. And they asked me to be one of the panelists, which I'm really thrilled about. I'm going to be Sunday evening at 4:15.
Wait, Sean.
Yes.
You're not officially a panelist unless you have a badge.
Well, hold on, Jake. That's funny that you say that, because it fell on the floor. I do have a panelist badge for JusticeCon. Yeah, I was almost going to come up with my Thor hammer, which is right next to it. I do have a panelist badge for JusticeCon.
Look how official you are.
Yeah, that logo was fan drawn, and it's all the hands of the Justice League members reaching out and grabbing the hand of a fan, which I think is really cool.
Is that you? Are you the fan?
For fans by fans. That is my hand. Yes, that I'm holding out.
I think it's really cool that they did the actual badges, because I feel like mentally speaking, it's nice to be able to hold that.
It's cool.
Yeah.
Absolutely, and they have.
So wait, do you walk through the O'Connell household like Wayne's World, like holding it out? Like, excuse me, Michelle, it's dinner time.
All I get to sit first at the table. Yes, I come and sit first. But in addition to me, because that's like the least important, they got Ray Fisher is doing a panel who plays Cyborg in Justice League. They got Fabian Wagner, who's Zack's cinematographer, who's going to come in and talk about the stuff they shot for the original version and some stuff that he might be doing for Zack Snyder's Justice League. In addition, Ray Porter is the voice of Darkseid, and he's going to be included in Justice League now because Darkseid does show up. And then on Saturday, the 25th at 5:30 Eastern time, Zack Snyder is doing a panel. So this fan-driven, convention that they put together haphazardly got Zack and Ray Fisher. Debbie Snyder is going to do a panel on Sundays with this podcast group called Snyder's Amazonians, which is an all-female driven podcast where they talk about the diversity and female representation in Zack's movies. And Debbie's going to join them for a panel conversation. It's a ton of really great things. It's all free. You can go find it on YouTube, JusticeCon, and just check out some of it and come to my panel if you guys want to. I've got a couple of things planned, a couple of fun things planned. So I'm thrilled for the group who's putting it together, and I'm psyched. I'm going to the beach with the family, and I've already kind of told Michelle, like, hey, I don't know what we're doing on Saturday, but I'm probably going to have to watch Zack's panel because I'm so invested. I'm emotionally invested.
Because, God knows, when you're on vacation, Saturday's the day where you probably normally don't do anything.
No, I mean, why would we?
Right? Sean, so wait, really quick, just to give you a shout out, can you tell people like when and where to find this, like how they can go out and...
Yeah, so I would go to YouTube and search for JusticeCon, and they have a page that you can subscribe to. All of the panels will be hosted on JusticeCon's YouTube page, and the schedule should be up there now at this point. But again, the highlights are on Saturday, Ray Fisher goes at 4 o'clock, Zack goes at 5:30, and then I'm the highlight of Sunday. Of course, if you're listening to ReelBlend, I'm the highlight. I will be 4:15 on Sunday evening, and I have some cool things planned.
Sean, what is the design of the panel? So in the sense of like, are you going to be able to take questions from people? Like, 'cause I thought it was cool when Snyder did his reveal for Justice League, the Snyder Cut, and he had specific fans pop up in the Zoom call, and then they all took turns and kind of saying things. Like, I feel like that's maybe a way they could play with that.
I absolutely plan on taking questions. I would like people to come to the panel with questions. The way that I have... Okay, so I'll tell you guys what I plan to do because it's not a big surprise. I'm going to get interviewed by the three ladies who are running the convention because they are hosting each panel. And we're going to talk about the book and the stage that the book is at right now. Then I'm going to read a chapter. I'm going to read not a full chapter, but I'm pulling out portions from the chapter that I pulled, from the lost chapter that got removed, and I will explain to everybody why I got removed, and I'll read some sections from that chapter, because I can't read anything from the book itself. The book belongs to a publisher now at this point, but the chapter that I pulled belongs to me, so I can read that if I want to. So I'm going to read some cool passages from that and get some of the good quotes that I have from that. Then people can ask questions, and then I have...
Sean, you're kind of releasing the O'Connell cut.
I'm a little bit releasing the O'Connell cut, yes.
Literally.
Then, here's the big reveal. And so if anyone in the Snyder Cut family is listening to this, this was the part that I was holding on to. The publisher gives me 15 copies of the book to do whatever I want to do with, willy-nilly. So I'm going to give 3 of them away during the panel. And we're figuring out a way for me of how to pick 3 people. You're going to have to be there and ask a question. Like, it'll probably get picked of the people who ask a question because I want to give it to people who come to the panel. But you'll guarantee get a free book, and I'll write personalized message inside the book for the 3 people that I pick. So, and it can't be you guys. Sorry, because you're going to get your own copies in. Well, you're going to get them anyway.
Oh, then I'm not even going to come to the panel then.
Oh, come on. I don't want you there. How about that? I don't want you to
Well, now I'm coming.
All right, so that's JusticeCon. Anyway, gosh, let's get to this one. Christopher Nolan's Tenet has been delayed indefinitely. And the indefinitely word is, that's not fair. Like, Variety ran with that, and then a bunch of reports said that WB is going to make an announcement plan imminently. They're circling back around to what Kevin, I think, had suggested. I forget who brought it up on last week's episode. And if you really want to hear our in-depth thoughts on this, go to last week's episode. Go to ReelBlend 126. We really dove deep into what Tenet should do in terms of opening overseas. But it's sounding more like Warner Brothers is going to try to go for that global market, open in international markets where it's safer, where you can go to theaters, try to start generating some revenue. Now, Kev, I don't know if you heard this bit. People are saying late August International Labor Day in the U.S. Did you hear that?
Well, I mean, I think I saw that on our text thread. I do think it's interesting if it opens up internationally first. I mean, that's a whole nother discussion, which we did get into on last week's episode. But I mean, I don't think we're getting Tenet on Labor Day in the United States. Do you really think we are?
No, I don't.
Well, also, wasn't another one of the rumors that it was going to be opening up potentially staggered here in the U.S., where like it might open up one city on this week, and then the next week it might open this city, and then this city might not get it till then, that they might just start doing
whichever cities are doing better. Release. Yeah, I read that somewhere too.
So the question is, of the four of us, who gets it first?
Sean.
Yeah, Charlotte. Charlotte is the safest.
No, but seriously.
No question. No, Sean has the best three. Out of our three cities, his is the best.
Well, I thought Charlotte was...
I think that Washington has pretty good numbers. North Carolina's numbers are not great right now. D.C. and Maryland, Virginia's numbers have been pretty good.
I thought Charlotte was like back to normal. I thought you said. Or was that a couple weeks ago?
The numbers in North and South Carolina are getting bad. But it's mostly beaches. It's the beach communities where people are going, which I'm heading to tomorrow. So good luck to me. But it's the people who are like really willy-nilly on the beach, not, packing in bars and things like that. So I think that that's hurting. South Carolina in particular, places like Myrtle Beach and all these summer hotspots are getting hit pretty bad. Charlotte's not too bad. Charlotte's been okay. Nothing opens in Charlotte. Nothing. We will never be the first city to get something cool. So that's not going to happen. I could see Jake getting it in Chicago, honestly. And I could see Kevin getting it in Washington, but I don't know. We'll see. So,
boys trip.
Warner Brothers has not made that announcement yet. We expect it to be soon, and we'll share it on our social medias once
Kevin,
you get to that.
You've talked about traveling to wherever Tenet opens if it opens somewhere outside DC. If it were to open to Chicago, would you come to Chicago to see it?
100%. Yeah, I would go. I would fly to Chicago. I would pay for my own flight to Chicago, even if Warner Brothers sent me a link to watch it at home.
Oh,
did you doubt that, Jake?
Well, I didn't know, because I'd imagine you'd have to take a flight, so I didn't know how to know where he stood via planes.
Oh, to Christopher Nolan will grab me anywhere.
Now, Gabriel, who's wrapping us up right now, he could hop in a car and drive up.
And I absolutely will.
But because he just wrapped us, sorry, sir. No room at the end. No room at the end.
Kevin would be on like the Dumb and Dumber scooter, like getting from Washington D.C. to
the
Chicago.
Flies. Remember the flies all over their face? I always loved the flies.
I get 13 miles to a gallon on this hog.
All right, so Tenet. That's your latest Tenet update. But we want to point out that despite the fact that that film's release is a little bit uncertain right now, there is an unusual sort of light at the end of the tunnel in terms of Hollywood productions, and that's the fact that there are some major films that have been returning to their studios and figuring out ways to get around filming in revamped sort of quarantine protocols. And that includes Jurassic World Dominion, which is Colin Trevorrow's film, to the point where Bryce Dallas Howard was showing some really badass bruises on her arms and side because of stunt work that she's been doing. So they're fully into filming. You hear the rumor about Matt Reeves bringing the Batman out of location shooting and trying to do more stuff on the lot. So they're trying to ramp up their production. Story today about Mission Impossible 7 is back filming, and Tom Cruise is looking at a couple of international locations. And I thought we had one more, Gabe. I kind of forget what the other one was.
Avatar's still filming.
Uncharted. Uncharted is underway in Berlin, or at least ramping up.
And internationally, there are a bunch of like smaller indie stuff too. There's a lot.
Did you mention The Matrix?
Oh, The Matrix is another one. Have they started up?
I don't know if they started up. I know they shut down, but I don't know. I mean, I would imagine that's probably an international.
I thought they were filming here domestically, though. I thought they were filming in like San Francisco.
Only?
They did for a little while.
Yeah. Well, no, probably not only.
Okay.
No. And Gabe, I'm sorry, not Gabe. Sean, just to keep the bit going.
Yeah.
Just to continue this joke that I love so much. It's Trevorrow.
Like tomorrow.
And the reason I know this is because he told Kevin and I in Hawaii, it's Trevorrow like tomorrow.
Jake, I cannot stress to you how little I care.
I'm just saying we're a professional film podcast. We should get people's names right.
Trevorrow? Is that what I said? Trevorrow?
Yeah. Yes.
I know. I actually do know it's Trevorrow, like tomorrow. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. The point being, I'm encouraged by the fact that these productions are circling back around and getting ready to be there if and when theaters are open. Yes, Gabe.
Oh, I just want to point out, it looks like Matrix 4 did start shooting in Germany recently.
Awesome.
Nice. Good.
And Lana Wachowski is the only director on that, right? It's not her sister as well. It's just Lana this time, which I think has been interesting. Yes. I'm actually interested to know why. I wonder. I mean, I don't know if the other sister was not just into doing another Matrix film, but it starts making me wonder about like the Joel and Ethan Coen relationship, where like was Lana always the director? And you know what I mean? Because I'm trying to remember the specifics behind it, but I know Joel and Ethan switch off, or sometimes it'll be Coen brothers, sometimes it'll be just Joel Coen. But I wonder if Lana was always the director. Do you think she was? I don't know.
I only saw her involved. But I do have a Matrix question for you guys. I don't know if you know the answer. As you knew, I don't know if you read, like Hugo Weaving, Agent Smith was originally written to return for Matrix 4. But then he had a theater commitment that kept that overlapped when they were going to film Matrix 4, which is obviously not happening anymore because no theaters are up and running. Do you think that they're going to try to write Agent Smith back into Matrix 4 now that I'm assuming he would be available?
Yeah.
Or is it too late into the production?
Jake, are you saying they might weave him into the production somehow?
Let's leave it there. All right. That's pretty good. I would like to see that they're going to. I think the point being that we're really, really happy that big movies that are expecting theatrical releases are still happening, and we're treating it like the industry is trying to figure their way back. I'm very curious about Matrix 4 because isn't there the rumors about like young Morpheus and all that jazz? Like,
well, that's why I don't understand. Like that the only person that survived the Matrix movies isn't coming back. Like Lawrence Fishburne is alive in the series, and he's the only one not coming back.
Larry Fishburne's got that Ant-Man and the Wasp money. He doesn't need to work.
One thing I will say about Matrix 4 is this. I can't remember reading a quote recently about Matrix 2 and 3, but 2 and 3 felt so uninspired, clearly, because they felt like business decisions and not story decisions, in my opinion. I think maybe what Lana Wachowski might do with this is actually get a good, solid Matrix sequel out of this. I mean, like 2 had a great car chase sequence, which we all love. There's some great action scenes in 2, but story-wise, 2 and 3 just didn't. I don't love the stuff in Zion. I just found that to be real. Wasn't there a dance part? Wasn't there a dance party?
Yeah, there's like a rave.
Oh, yeah.
There's like a very sweaty rave.
A lengthy rave.
And then the stuff with the architect.
Yeah, I don't know. Those films were so uninspired, but like there was nothing. Remember how anticipated the second one was? It was such a big deal. But I went at midnight. Yeah, part of me wonders though if Lana Wachowski, I'm sure she's aware that those 2 weren't as good as 1. I'm sure she is, and I wonder if 4 might be a redo, like or you know what I mean? Like maybe it'll help bring the franchise back full circle.
Just this past week, I thought Bill Pope, the cinematographer, came out and said the work that we did on those 2 sequels is inferior. Like he knew in the moment, they knew it wasn't working. And they tried their best to find their way through it, but
Bill Pope,
they took themselves way too seriously. Like the first one was so much fun, and then 2 and 3, which was just like a weird dive into this mythology that they were trying to create. Like they just took themselves so seriously in 2 and 3, they forgot to have fun.
It's funny to me.
Did I tell you guys? Oh, I'm sorry, Kafka.
No, go ahead, Sean. Sorry.
Did I tell you guys how the Matrix Reloaded got me on TV? Got me my TV career?
No.
I feel like I've told you guys this story before. All right, we're going way off track with this. The point being, sorry, Gabe, that film productions are coming back, and we're really excited about that. But anyway, I was working at the local newspaper here in the market in Charlotte, and I was their arts and entertainment guy and their movie reviewer. I started the section and brought them the idea, and I was like, hey, you should have an arts and entertainment guy, and you could run a movie section. And they were like, yeah, you should totally do that. And I sort of built that from scratch. And I was doing that for a couple of years here in Charlotte. We were still new here, and I was exploring the film community, which is small. I mean, Charlotte's not a huge city, but you guys both know that in your markets, there's the same amount of media people that you run into. And the NBC affiliate did a gimmick that was trading spaces. And this is to show you how far back this goes. Katie Couric and Jay Leno switched places for a week. And Katie Couric, who was doing the Today Show, she did the Tonight Show. And then Jay Leno came in the mornings and he hosted the thing. And it was wacky,
That's
know?
Cool.
Like, look at
I
these
didn't know
two
that.
trading their places. And so the local NBC affiliates, of course, their GMs latching on to any kind of original idea was like, you guys should get your anchors to trade jobs with people. So they essentially, the three anchors who we loved watching in the morning said, we're going to do this. We're going to trade places with people out in Charlotte. And so tell us what job you do. And it was the week that The Matrix Reloaded was going to have its press screening in Charlotte. So I sent an email into the anchors and I was like, do you guys want to review The Matrix Reloaded ahead of time? And the one guy was like, absolutely, I do. Like, I'd love to go to that screening. So I got to go on the morning show and be an anchor. And he got to come with me to the Matrix screening and he got to write the review. And they did it like a bit, like he came to our office and pretended he was writing a review and they cut together a whole package. But then they put me on the TV and I did the morning show and it went so well. Like it's not hard. You can do it. If you're charismatic and you can read a prompter, it's pretty easy to do.
Keep telling me about how
it's
non-difficult
so easy.
my profession
it's
is.
So easy that literally anyone can do it. That I just got but at the end of it, I'll never forget the girl, the other host, the co-host at the end of it, she said, this is one of those lines where when you hear it, it just changes your career path. She said, you're really good at this. You should totally do this more for us. And I was like, I would love to. And then I followed up with her afterwards and then stayed on the NBC affiliate and just worked my way into junkets and just kept getting, look at you. I know. Like, I don't have any Emmys to hold, obviously.
Oh, where do these things come from?
These
old things. Oh, they just toss them out.
So I owe it to The Matrix Reloaded, as bad of a film as it is. I probably would not have a TV career and
That's a great story,
be on
actually.
the junket circuit if not for that guy accepting my email and saying he wanted to trade places.
That movie for me is just Friends in a weird way. Yeah, that's the film that started my whole career. It's so interesting. Jake, do you have one? Was there one that started everything?
Not really. For me, it wasn't a movie in particular, just because I kept sending emails over and over again for 57 weeks. And finally, they were like, just stop, please.
But how did you get on the press lists in Houston, though? Was that hard to do?
Well, there was really no one in Houston that was on television covering film. So once the local, and all the stuff that we all know and we all kind of like take for granted for knowing now, I had to get a crash course very fast. The whole concept of a PR firm, the whole concept of what a junket was, I had to learn all of that really fast.
Yeah.
So once the PR firms started finding out, because what would happen was I would review the movie after it came, like the week after it came out. I'd pay to go see it in the theaters and then review it the next week. And then all of a sudden these PR firms started going like, wait, there's someone like on TV in Houston doing this? So they reached out to the station. They said like, who is this kid? Does he want to do a junket? And then they had to call me, explain to me what a junket was. And now here we are.
Does he want to propose to Anne Hathaway in Brazil?
Like you do.
Like one does, yes.
As
Because
one
Houston's
does.
like the fourth major market, isn't it? It's a huge market to not have representation.
It's the fourth largest city in the country. Surprisingly, it's only the ninth biggest market in the country, and it's because it's surrounded by other big markets. Like it's got Beaumont to the east, it's got Austin and San Antonio to the west, it's got Dallas to the north, as opposed to a lot of major markets are just that big city and there's really nothing around. So
Gotcha.
it's a big city but smaller market than you would think.
There you go. Well, there's a traditional ReelBlend tangent brought to you by the three hosts of ReelBlend. All right, this week in movies. I want to point out that Scoob, the animated film, is coming to HBO Max. And along those lines, you can check out our interview with the great Tony Cervoni. And in addition to our interview, which is in the Scoob episode, Tony came back around because we did a commentary track with him about Space Jam, because he was the lead animator, the lead animation director on Space Jam. Well, now Jake people will be able to find out how fun it was because it's going to drop as a bonus episode this week. So again, have your Space Jam copy. No, we haven't even released it yet. No, John Krasinski too is coming up someday. We have an amazing John Krasinski.
That's
interview
such a good interview.
It's really, really good. I feel like can you guys hear the
Don't
thunder?
wrap us, Gabe, just because you weren't a part of it.
My Lord in heaven.
That's thunder?
Yes, thunder is booming at my house. It's very, very loud. Animal Crackers is an animated film coming to Netflix that Gabe tells me has a massive cast. It's not the Marx Brothers film, but it's an animated movie that's going to be... Are you looking up the cast, Gabe? Because I would like to hear who's in this Animal Crackers film. And coming to Amazon Prime, you guys can finally see Radioactive. The boys
Radioactive.
Rosamund Pike. I was wrong about that. Kevin was correct. It is Rosamund Pike. And she was outstanding in their interviews, which you'll be able to see on their YouTube channels. Kev, did you post yours?
I haven't posted mine yet, but she gave me a very interesting long answer about Fincher and Gone Girl, which I'll put it up at some point.
And also coming to VOD is Dave Franco's film The Rental. Now you got to hear him talk about it in our interview, and The Rental it's weird. Like there's a bunch of things we can't talk to you about because there's just some really great surprises for people to discover. So, Jake, do me a favor, give me like a breakdown of what it's about, without going far enough where we sort of ruin what the hook is.
Well, a lot of people listening have probably experienced the idea or the concept of renting an Airbnb, and so I would say this is everything that you never wanted to happen while you're renting an Airbnb. So imagine like absolute worst case scenario, and then turn it up to 11.
Yeah, I kind of don't love that we're on our way to one tomorrow. And a lot of those thoughts were going through my head as I was watching this film. I like the fact that it's, you hear the term slow burn and it applies here. It's not this like over the top rampant, serial killer type story. It's psychological horror that makes you think a lot about decisions made by people. I'll say it that way. And then, as you heard in the interview, we gushed with Dave just about like a lot of the technical choices that he made. Really impressive as a first-time director. And so I would 100% recommend this. I'd give it 4 stars out of 5. Where do you guys rank it? How many stars are you giving it?
Yeah, I'd probably say about 4 out of 5. I was really impressed. Really nice, tight 90 minutes. I think with credits it comes at like 87 or something like that. Mm-hmm. And it's funny. I hadn't seen the trailer going into it, so I didn't really know what direction it was going in the third act. So that direction that it goes, what it becomes in the third act, was really a surprise. Like I was perfectly content with I mean, you talk about how like the beginning was a slow burn. I just thought that that's what the movie was, and then it really ramps up in that last act, and I went, oh, like I didn't know that that's what this movie was, and so I really actually was very pleasantly surprised by that.
Kev, what do you think?
Yeah, I gave it a 4 out of 5 as well. I thought Franco really showed some promise as a thriller filmmaker, and I think that his editing choices and shot choices were absolutely fantastic. The cast, I thought, was just incredible. I'm blanking on the gentleman's name who played Dan Stevens' brother in the film, but that performance was
I'll look it up.
Outstanding. Like that kid grounded the film in such a special way. This movie is very interesting because it's the first 30 minutes are pure character building, and that's what makes the scares so great towards the end of the film, because when you actually care for the characters that you're watching, it makes the horror and the thrilling aspects way more immersive for its audience. So I found myself like truly invested in these people. Also, as we told I don't know if we brought this up in the interview, but we told Dave Franco that the film messes with perception, right? So it messes with this idea of manipulating perception of its audience. And I think a director has a beautiful way of being able to play with our emotions and not know what we're getting ourselves into until he tells us or she tells us what we want, what the story is going to do for us. And I find that to be a very interesting tool, and I think he utilized that perception manipulation very, very strongly. I give it a 4.
That actor's name is Jeremy Allen White, and he's outstanding in it. And then, of course, it also stars Dan Stevens, who people know from The Guest, and he was the Beast in Beauty and the Beast. And then Dave's wife, Alison Brie, is fantastic in it as well, too. So check out The Rental. All 3 of us will tell you that it's really, really good. And then you guys can send us your reviews of it via social media. We want to hear what you guys thought about it. So on to the blend game for this week. We are celebrating the films of Paul Greengrass. And I found this to be a challenge because I deeply, deeply respect a lot of Paul Greengrass's work. But I don't know if I would ever say that I love his films because they are heavy, heavy stuff. Even things like Green Zone, 22 July, which I really respect the way that he told that story. It's not something you just want to sit down and pop on. That he likes to explore terrible situations, sometimes often rooted in terrorist acts. Obviously with United 93 and then 22 July, he was immersed in the Bourne franchise for parts 2 and 3, and then he returned for Jason Bourne, didn't he? Come back to do that fourth one with him too. So I'll go first, and I will say that his best film by far is United 93, but I can't pick it because the game is favorite. So I'm going with The Bourne Ultimatum. Because The Bourne Ultimatum to me is when that franchise and him in particular and his approach to it clicked. You know, I think he was trying to figure out how to get into it and take over for Doug Liman, who directed the first Bourne film, and try to make it his own. So Greengrass spent Supremacy sort of playing around with how he would do the character. And my one critique at Paul Greengrass is sometimes his action is too choppy. I know he does immersion, and he just plunges his camera into it, and it's a lot of POV shots or really up close facial shots. And that's disarming to me, a little bit jarring. I prefer, that's actually why I think I love Quaron so much, because Quaron doesn't do that. He steps back and he lets you see everything that's going on. Greengrass wants you in it, so he puts you right in it. And if it's Matt Damon chasing somebody through hallways and over rooftops, you're running with them kind of thing. And that's an aesthetic. I get it. He chooses it. But the chase sequences and the set pieces in Ultimatum are to me the best of the Bourne franchise. Like, that's when everything just sort of comes to fruition. He figures out exactly how to do it. Should have left Well Enough alone. I don't think Jason Bourne is that good of a film. It's going back to the well one too many times. But yeah, it's funny too. In my mind, the Bourne franchise is underrated because I don't put it up there with Bond or Mission Impossible, and I probably should. I probably should give it more credit in my own mind than I do, but I would put those two franchises above the work that's done in Bourne as an action franchise. But Ultimatum is going to be my favorite Paul Greengrass film. So, Kev, where are you at?
Yeah, Ultimatum's incredible. I mean, I went United 93, and only because it's the first film I think about when I think of his name. I mean, is it my favorite? I don't think any of his films are my favorite. I don't rewatch.
They're so heavy.
Yeah, I don't rewatch Greengrass movies at all, really. I don't think I've rewatched any of the Bourne films in a long time. Ultimatum was an outstanding action film, but the problem I have with the Bourne films is the exact reason you just gave. I can't stand some of the action set pieces because I can't see it. And to me, that is again, I love Paul Greengrass, but when you can't see action, my first thought is there's a lack of choreography. There's a lack of actually training and learning the fight choreography. You watch something like John Wick or 1, 2, or 3, when you bring in stunt guys to direct these films and you are wide and you are long for 7-8 minutes in an action scene that Halle Berry and Keanu Reeves are choreographing and physically doing it before your eyes. The aesthetic that you're referring to of being that close up, just to me, it's a little more lazy. I don't find that the action comes across that well. That's probably why I didn't go down the Bourne route. I mean, I like those films a lot, but...
Okay, but can I stop on something just for a second there? Because I want us to discuss this. Because let's take like a car chase in one of the Bourne films. They're edited in a way that like things are crashing into everything, and you're exactly right. You can't see what's happening, but we know that he's staging the car. It's, you know, it's happening. The action is there. I can't understand that choice of,
it's like wasting
I don't want
it.
the audience to understand what's happening, so I'm going to make it really kinetic and mix it up.
Is it meant to be like what it would be like for Jason? Like if you're Jason in that moment, you're like looking all over. Like you don't really know. Like you don't have the ability to like step out and look and see everything. So is he trying to immerse us in such a way so that we kind of feel how he feels, so that like we don't really know what's going on? We're looking all over the place.
That's definitely the concept that he's going for.
But he just doesn't execute.
I don't think that it works because like that's why every time I refer to an action scene in a film, like I always look at the Bourne films and go, that's how I think action should not be done. And then I point to filmmakers. Now, don't get me wrong, Bourne Ultimatum had some insane action scenes, and to Jake's point, yes, he's trying to put you in that seat, but I've seen POV done so much better than I have in the Bourne films. I've seen POV done where I can see it. I have.
I mean,
and he comes from a...
Oh, sorry, Gabe.
He comes from a... I just want to point out that style, and I think he's spoken about this specifically, but he comes from a documentary background, so I think a lot of it, it's based in immersion, but I think a lot of it, the aesthetic itself comes from the idea of like, okay, what if there was a camera here when a guy came rushing down the street? You'd miss the shot. You know, you wouldn't get the shot. It's about that frenetic kind of thing. I think he's kind of reflecting on like what documentary filmmaking is, which is you get it or you don't. It has to feel kind of organic and real.
I just feel like as an audience member, like you watch action scenes that Nolan does, you're seeing everything. You're seeing like there's a lot of work that goes into the choreography of a dance that a camera does with an actor. And I feel like, again, I enjoy the Bourne films. I just find I'm with you. I find it to be frustrating. The other day, one of the Bourne films was on the TV upstairs. I couldn't tell you what happened in the action scene. And it was on screen for a few minutes. I could not tell you who was fighting who, what was going on. And again, I get the style. It just doesn't work for me as an audience member. I appreciate when a filmmaker really kind of shows you what they're doing personally.
And I'll bring up the Mission films because no matter the director, I think Cruise probably says, hey, we're not going to do that.
Oh,
because we were just watching Mission Impossible 3, and I'm amazed at how JJ's camera, and JJ does it. JJ does sweeping shots. You know, his camera's always in motion.
When he's running at the end, when he's running, just like that long shot
and he's not. It doesn't chop up. It doesn't break away. So
look at the car chases in Fallout. I mean, like anytime you're in a car with Fallout and they're doing that chase scene with Rebecca Ferguson, like you see every aspect of it. And you know, Macquarie is a brilliant mind. I don't think Greengrass is doing the frenetic style to make us mad. Obviously, he's trying to create an immersive environment. I just feel like it's almost, in a weird way, too much immersion.
Well,
if that makes sense.
The places where it works are fistfights. The fistfights in the Bourne franchise they hurt.
Agreed.
Like when Damon bursts through a window and there's someone in there waiting for him, they go at each other in a way where that style works, because I want to back out. You know, I want to be like, dude, step back a little bit.
Yeah. But I mean,
sometimes it's overwhelming.
I want to sit with these scenes. I want to be in the scene, and I feel like that's the thing. But going back to United 93, the reason why I chose that film is because it was a film that came out in a time period where people were doing 9/11 type of stories and films. And it felt like those were being done for profit and they're profiting off of what happened, right? And when I saw, and again, I don't know for sure, I just found it to be too early for some of those stories, especially Oliver Stone's World Trade Center. We weren't ready for that yet, I don't think. But this story he told in United 93 was so important and so representative of the amazing heroes that were on that plane that helped bring the plane down, essentially to keep it from going to whatever destination it was going to. And to me, I don't think about that story enough when I think of 9/11. I think about the towers and I think about the Pentagon, but you don't hear a lot about that particular story of United 93 because it ended in a horrific disaster, but it was nowhere. It was like people were talking about the towers and the Pentagon. Those were the two leading stories. And I felt like for a filmmaker to give this story air, to give it breathability, to tell this story, and then to work with the actual family members of the people who died. Like the actors got to meet the family members of the people they were playing. And to me, it was a story that needed to be told. I think that a phenomenal filmmaker being put behind the camera to tell that story and to give that story levity and give it weight was why the film worked for me. And like I told you guys before, I believe he uses the original Twin Towers plane crash shot in the film. And if you watch the way he shoots, like you're talking about the frenetic element of his shots, he blends that shot perfectly together from the perspective of the air traffic control area.
Well, so that's exactly what Gabe is talking about, the documentary style, where like anyone else would have done a shot at the tower, you know, like up close in the tower. But for them, it was in the background because he was so focused on the air traffic controllers. That was brilliant, the way that he portrayed that.
Yeah, that when I first saw that film, I walked in with, do I need to watch a 9/11 film or is it too soon? I walked out with, oh my God, I'm so happy I know more about the story now. So it was like, it was a really, really important story that needed to be told. And, you know, there's no big stars in it. It is told very much like a documentary, like you're saying. But the way he handled the plane hitting the tower, I thought was so... It was done in a very tasteful way. I mean, like there could have they like you said, they could have made that more Hollywood. It could have been like right there on the ground. It could, you know, but for me to step back and not sensationalize that in a film and use it as that moment you're referring to is just looking from the control tower. I just feel like he paid so much respect to the families and the people who lost their lives in that particular plane. And I felt like their story wasn't told enough. And I'm just honored that I got to experience a film that let me live their story and let me live the possibility of overtaking these terrorists and stopping them from wherever they were going, even if it meant everybody losing their lives. And to me, that's a film that I walked away from going, damn, I am so happy I got to see this movie because now I have a better understanding of that day from that perspective rather than what I saw in the news specifically.
Well, I love it too. It's a Brit filmmaker making, you know, a story about America's darkest day, you know, and I think that separation almost allows him to approach it with a clinical eye almost. And I mean, that was my number one movie of the decade, obviously.
It's a masterpiece.
The day that it came out. So. Jakey.
Before I throw mine out, I'm going to say just one quick thing about the Bourne movies, which is that I think that they're good. Like, I like the Bourne movies, but I think the reason that I would never put them on the level of Bond or especially Mission Impossible is I think Jason Bourne is an inherently boring character.
Yeah.
I love Matt Damon.
Yeah.
But if you told me to explain, explain, tell me about Jason Bourne, I'd go like, oh, he doesn't remember who he is, and he's really ticked off about it. Like, and that's it. Yeah. And he runs a lot. And there's always someone in the movie that goes, oh my God, it's Jason Bourne.
Yeah. And there's the one thing about him too, which I've said this on the podcast and I hate it. I hate indestructible heroes. You know, like nothing stops Jason Bourne, literally. Like he gets through everything. Yeah. And that gets
Which is why I love Ethan Hawke. Because like, yes, he does end up winning at the end of every movie, but he gets the crap beat out of him for 2 hours before that happens.
Did you say Ethan Hawke?
Ethan Hunt. Wait, I think
I thought he said Ethan Hawke too.
I probably said Ethan Hawke. I probably said Ethan Hawke, but I meant Ethan Hawke. My pick is Captain Phillips.
Oh, really?
If only because I think it yielded. You don't like that movie?
Well, it's devastating. Like most of Paul Greengrass's films, it's emotionally devastating.
Yeah, United 93.
Tom Hanks, that is Tom Hanks' finest scene. It's Tom Hanks' finest scene.
Without question. And so I had to choose that if only because it yielded the single greatest moment of Tom Hanks' career, which is like, is that your blood? No, that's not mine. And to Gabe's point about the documentary style filmmaking, I'm sure you guys know this story, but for people that don't know, that scene was not scripted. That person that was working on Tom was a real medical professional, and Paul told her, treat him like you would treat a patient under these circumstances, and ask him the questions that you would normally ask, and do like, I'm not going to script you, you do it. And Tom, you react accordingly. And that direction yielded what I think is the single greatest moment of acting in Tom Hanks' career, where he just 2 hours of tension that's just built up, not just for him, but for us as an audience, like built up, because the whole movie you're just watching it going like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. And all of that tension, it's like someone pulled out a cork, is let out in that moment. He just, when he starts looking around and seeing like, that blood's not mine, that blood's not mine, and he just loses it. And then I feel like that's when we as an audience, we both are allowed to breathe, but then we also inherently finally come to terms with what just, because you can make the art like you haven't breathed for 2 hours, and for the first, like, you're finally able to breathe, and then you have to accept everything that just happened to you. I think it's a masterful film. I thought the direction was incredible. I think aside from that moment, it's one of Tom Hanks's probably top 5 performances ever. If not, I'd probably say I think Castaway and Captain Phillips are his 2 best performances of his career. Hey,
guess what? He didn't get an Oscar nomination for it.
It blows my mind. Like, it blows my mind he didn't get an Oscar nomination.
Didn't Barkhad Abdi get an Oscar nomination for that? And he improv'd his famous line, right? I'm the captain now.
Yeah, I'm the captain. Yeah,
really?
Yeah, that was improv.
Yeah. But if you go to, like, it's interesting. I think what we're kind of unfolding here is that Greengrass's docu-style works in heavy drama better than it does in action. Like for example, when you're looking at United 93, I mean, same thing as to what Jake was saying just now about the nurse. Weren't there real air traffic controller people, like control people, who were actually on set? I think some of the people in the film are actually real air traffic controllers.
So the way we were talking about submarine, like authentic submarine conversation, he does that for air traffic controllers. Like, it makes it so riveting of how much they have to pay attention to where every plane is at any given moment. Because I'm blown away by the approach to that.
The reason why the docu-style works so heavily in these moments is because you forget you're watching a film. Like, that's what happens. Like when I watched United 93, I thought I was reliving 9/11 for real. Like in the sense of, as I watched it, I'm like, this is not a Hollywood film. I'm here. I'm with the characters. And like, same thing with Captain Phillips. Like, the way Hanks, what is he, shirtless in that scene? I remember he's so vulnerable and so naked, literally, that the way that scene is shot, that's where Greengrass's docu-style really shines. Like, that's where it really, like, narratively, that's where it works. And like, you know, like you said, there's some great stuff in the Bourne films, but he really is great with drama and making it feel like very immersive and real. That's why it's important, I think.
All right, I want to get to he's got a movie coming out this year with Tom Hanks. And it's supposed to come out on Christmas Day, which I'd learned about. You know, I heard this title, but I didn't know what it was. It's called News of the World, and it's Paul Greengrass directing. Tom Hanks is starring in it, and it's a Texan traveling across the Wild West, bringing the news of the world to local townspeople, agrees to help rescue a young girl who was kidnapped. And I guess Tom Hanks is the main guy.
It's The Outsiders?
True Grit. It's True Grit.
Yeah.
With Tom Hanks.
The Searchers?
It could be The Searchers. Yeah. News of the World. It's a drama western with Tom Hanks, directed by Paul Greengrass. And I'm pretty intrigued by that. I mean, I think that sounds pretty amazing.
So Tom
I want
Hanks
to see that collaboration.
supposed to have 3 movies come out this year?
Does Greyhound really count? I mean, I'm curious.
Well, I mean, it was supposed to come to theaters, and then BIOS was supposed to come to theaters, and then, and then that one.
So I want to go back to this Best Actor race that Tom Hanks got left out of for Captain Phillips. Because this is fun to do revisionist Oscar history. I want you to tell me if you would replace any of these people with Tom Hanks in Captain Phillips.
All right, let's go.
Matthew McConaughey, Dallas Buyers Club.
Yep.
You'd replace Matthew McConaughey with
all right, no.
Tom Hanks, Captain
all right.
Phillips.
All right. McConaughey, leave McConaughey.
Jake was going to say yes to all of them.
Yeah. Leave McConaughey.
McConaughey won, actually.
Yes, yeah, I know. And leave DiCaprio.
DiCaprio, Wolf of Wall Street.
Which,
Leave
by
DiCaprio.
the way, DiCaprio's Wolf of Wall Street performance is better than every performance you're going to mention combined.
Chiwetel Ejiofor for 12 Years a Slave.
Great movie, but I think DiCaprio's performance I think Chiwetel's performance is phenomenal, but the movie itself is better than the performance, I think.
Who are the other 2?
All right. Christian Bale, American Hustle.
Take Bale out. Take Bale out, put Hanks in.
And Bruce Dern, Nebraska.
Oh, I love Nebraska.
Take Bale out.
You take Bale out and you put Tom Hanks in?
But give it to DiCaprio. That's the movie DiCaprio should have won for. Revenant,
Okay.
I love The Revenant.
It's okay.
I love The Revenant.
Oh, The Revenant's fantastic.
I like The Revenant. I do not love The Revenant.
All right. Interesting. So, Tom Hanks, you got jobbed.
Kevin is pro Bear.
For being too nice. What's that?
Kevin is pro bear, so he didn't like The Revenant.
No, I thought The Revenant. How many
true.
times have you guys revisited The Revenant?
More than you would think.
Once, and because I showed it to Michelle and she was floored by it. Floored.
Okay. All right.
It's beautiful.
Oh, no, it's
Dude.
beautiful. It's a
Emmanuel Lubezki.
Chivo's cinematography is the only reason why I don't find that film to be as. I don't think DiCaprio should have won for that movie. I really don't.
That was my number one of the year.
It's a-
Was it really?
Yeah.
The
Very-
Revenant
it's
was
a-
your number
yeah.
one?
I liked it.
Curious.
Didn't love it.
All right. Audience picks for Paul Greengrass. John Palmer, Jim Mehta, Joseph Lapilio, and many, many others said do 1993. Susie Q chose Bloody Sunday from his earliest days. Anna, Randy Buss, and others chose The Bourne Ultimatum. Michelle, Overly Garrist, Griffin Schiller, Stephanie DeLees, and more chose The Bourne Supremacy. Thank you so much for participating this week. Oh, Gabe, you're going to have to come on and explain this one to me because it says that for next week, you can reach out on Twitter using hashtag CliffhangerBlend. Or you can let us know via ReelBlend at CinemaBlend.com.
I get that.
So he says, no, not your favorite scene from the movie Cliffhanger, but your favorite cliffhanger ending in cinema. Now, are there a lot of cliffhanger endings in cinema? Enough that we could choose from?
Yeah. There are a lot of like trilogies and stuff that have
Okay.
like a cliffhanger in the middle of them.
Interesting.
Then there's, Nolan's whole oeuvre is available for
Okay.
you.
Okay. Fair,
I think that's a good one. That's a good
All
one.
right.
There's a lot, yeah.
Hashtag Cliffhanger Blend. So you guys can play along on social media, going to ReelBlend and letting us know which your choices are. A lot of people sending us emails. I want to thank everybody who is weighing in by sending us an email to ReelBlend at CinemaBlend.com. And that is also where you can send us an email if you want to, an email review if you want to, and we will read it here on the show. This week's comes to us from Anastasia Creighton, or Anastasia Creighton, who has been very active on our social media channels. I see her weighing in with films that she's watching and movies that she's been rediscovering. She's becoming a very active voice in the ReelBlend community. So welcome, Anastasia. We're lucky to have you here. Your review has the subject line, the best movie podcast ever. And it says, I've been in quarantine since the beginning of March. I have done nothing but listen to episodes of ReelBlend. I've filled my days with listening to new and re-listening to old episodes. I've lost count how many times I've re-listened to the Quentin Tarantino interviews. And I'm going to pause it there for a minute because I hear that from a lot of people. Like the
I just
2 hour,
re-listened to it.
Yeah, Jake just re-listened to it. That Tarantino episode is going to be, that's a Hall of Famer. Like it's just this, the amount of people who find us through that interview and the amount of people who tell us that they go back to re-listen to it over and over again makes me, because every time I hear somebody bring it up, I stop and think about what we went through to pull that interview off.
Speaking of Jason Bourne, we had Jason Bourne on the show.
Bourne ourselves. Both of them. The LA one of getting ourselves out there and everything with the tequila, and then the New York one with our technical issues. If you've made it this far into the episode and you haven't listened to the Tarantino episodes, something's wrong with you. But anyway, let's continue on with Anastasia's great review. She says, Kevin's insights on camera shots and how a score can affect a film have changed the way that I watch movies. Jake's passion for Tom Hanks and Star Wars makes me be that way about my favorite actors in movies. I love how Sean is always looking for the emotional element from a film because I am the same way. I've been a fan of Jake's and Kevin's interviews for years. I watch all of their interviews on YouTube and I'm always impressed with their thoughtful and insightful questions. When I found out that they had a podcast, I got to know Sean and I was immediately hooked. This podcast has become my quarantine buddy. I'm an avid movie lover, but I don't really have anyone in my life to geek out about them with. The fun banter and respect all the guys have for each other makes the show so special. I genuinely look forward to hearing Kevin's puns and Jake saying that he is quitting because he can't handle it anymore. You guys have so much knowledge, it blows my mind every single time. I recommend this podcast to everyone I know, and I can't thank you guys enough. Every time you guys talk about a movie I've never seen, I put it on my ever-growing watch list. Keep up the great work, and I appreciate you being my distraction during these crazy times. Dunkirk in all caps with 3 exclamation points. And that, my friends, is the reason why this show exists. I mean, that's
What
just
a review. What a review.
That's everything. Yes, that is everything, Anastasia. Wow. So thank you very much. You can obviously send us a review at ReelBlend@CinemaBlend.com. You can go onto the iTunes page and log in and leave us a review. It helps our status go. Well, some people say it helps your status. Some people say it has nothing to do with anything whatsoever. But we like reading reviews at the end of each show. So keep an eye out for the Space Jam commentary track with Tony Savoni. Honestly, he had so many great stories to tell about being with Jordan and all the NBA superstars during that time. You can follow us on social media at Jake's Takes, at Kevin McCarthy TV, and at Sean_O'Connell. Now, is that Sally or is that Jack?
This is Sally. Lauren just handed them to me. This wasn't planned.
Yeah.
I think.
But she'll be on the YouTube. It should be on the YouTube page now. So another reason to tune into the YouTube version of the show is you will get to see Sally, Kevin's new pup. Obviously, Jack and Sally named after the Nightmare Before Christmas.
Should we put Jack on camera too?
He's smitten.
There you
of
go.
course, you should put Jack on camera. That's no brainer.
Look at those faces.
Here he is.
Look at that little face.
I love it.
Okay, Gabe, that has to be his thumbnail, right?
I mean, that should be the only thumbnail, honestly. Leave Jake and I out of this one and just put those three. Kevin, Jack, and Sally, please.
I'd watch that. Watch it be like the number one video that we've ever had.
Of all time. We'll be back next week with a brand new episode. And so until then, first off, thank you guys for listening and for watching and supporting the show. We cannot tell you guys how much we appreciate it. We'll be back next week with a new episode. And until then,
Dunkirk.